3 days at the lodging conference interviewing great minds of the industry. So tired, must reboot.
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey everybody, Glenn Hausman here at the No Vacancy Podcast. Man, oh man, am I happy to have each and every one of you with me here every single week on our fun show. Man, I had a great time this week. I was down at the lodging conference in Phoenix, Arizona, and boy, was that a good time. Brand new hotel for the good folks at the lodging conference after being at the Arizona Biltmore for, 20 years or so. They moved over to the JW Marriott Desert Ridge and kind of really created a whole brand new way of experiencing this event. Everybody was a little off kilter on that first day, trying to get their footing, trying to find their spots to hang out, trying to find the places they're going to meet to get those deals done. And they had a lot of places to do because that hotel was pretty freaking awesome, pretty freaking big. And over 2,300 people attended this conference, making it the biggest one ever. Man, were there a lot of amazing, incredible, awesome vibes over at that conference. But I'll get back to that in just 1 minute. I just want to make sure that you guys out there reshape your expectations of what an FF&E distribution partner for hospitality should be. And of course, you know by now, I'm talking about the good folks at Almo Hospitality. Find them at almohospitality.com or hospitality.almoproav.com and learn all about how they work with industry-leading brands and the latest hospitality trends and all of that kind of stuff that's going to make you more money. I'm talking helping you with in-room entertainment with brands such as Samsung and Cirque Plus, guest convenience and comfort with like Conair, Cuisinart, LG Electronics, Magic Chef, banquet and conference room stuff, NEC, Canon, TeleAdapt, all sorts of companies. And of course, you got indoor and outdoor furniture, outdoors for Cape Soleil. Then you got Cambridge, Hanover, Keystone, Peerless. I could go on and on and on with the brands that they have and how they could help you save money. Really. Look out for them. Check them out. Go to almohospitality.com or hospitality.almoproav.com. Also, if you haven't subscribed to our show yet, what are you waiting for? Give us that 5-star rating on iTunes. I'd really appreciate that. And also, while you're at it, subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Text the word hotel to 66866. That's hotel to 66866. Get all the podcasts, all the videos, all in one easy, convenient thing every Sunday night delivered right to your email box. I always wonder why people say right to your email box, like it's going to be delivered to the email box next to your email box. I don't know how that works. I'm just here repeating phrases that we all use every single day. All right, so back to the lodging conference. I had a lot of fun over there. We had the No Vacancy studio set up, and I got to interview so many incredible, wonderful people over these few days that we had over there. For example, we've got interviews coming up over the next few weeks, both here in the audio version and the video version, with Alan Roberts, who runs Embassy Suites, the SVP of Radisson's franchising efforts, Ali El Busani. We've got Brad LeBlanc of Best Western, who's running their franchising operations now, their development. We got the CEO of the AHLA, Chip Roberts. We've got Eric Myers, who does development at My Place. We've got the CEO of World Hotels. We've got the leadership for Green Tree Hotels. And of course, we've got folks from Hilton, Extended Stay America, Sightline Hospitality, G6, Remington Hotels, and more, all coming up online, on video, everywhere in the next few weeks. Man, I had such a great time getting all these interviews. One of them, which you're going to hear today, and that is with Jenn Gribble of IHG, talking about their brand new brand. And that one is called Atwell Suites. And though it was announced earlier this year, they finally started franchising it. So we're going to learn all about how they are seeking out that brand new market that they've identified called long stay, which is not transient, not extended stay. It's more of that 4 to 6 night thing, and they feel that it's an $18 billion opportunity for them, et cetera, et cetera. Also, Hyatt, at this event, they released a brand new concept called Caption by Hyatt. And they're going to be focused on designing a location where guests feel comfortable, having conversations, eating and drinking, and all of that kind of stuff. More of a continuation that we've been seeing it. However, the one notable difference here is Danny Myers, Union Square Hospitality Group, consultant on the design and curation of these spaces. So I think that's pretty good, especially when it comes to the food component of it. I'm liking it. I really like what Hyatt's been up to over the last 10 years. They've really redefined that company, have been way ahead of their trend. So while this to me sounds like it's a little bit of the same old that we've been seeing from some of the other major hotel companies, and a little bit behind where I see some other companies that are in alternative accommodations, I think it's an interesting idea, and I cannot wait to see that. Speaking of alternative accommodations, during the lodging conference, I had the honor, thank you, Harry Javer, co-founder, and the guy in charge of the lodging conference, putting me on not one but two panels. One was an alternative accommodations breakout session that took place on Wednesday of this week, and the other was Wednesday morning, where I was so fortunate I got to host a big old general session in front of, 1,000, 1,500 people or something like that with some of the top development and money folks in the business. I'm talking David Pepper, who runs development for Choice. I'm talking Paul Sacco, who runs development for RLH. I'm talking Matt Welling, who's SVP of development in the U.S. and Canada for Hilton, plus Dilip Pettigara of Access Point Financial. He runs that company, and Steve Haggerty, a managing partner at Trinity Investments. Really fantastic panel. Lots of great conversations that we had there, and I think what it really came down to is there is money available for the right projects in the right places. Plus, interest rates, they're almost giving it away, right? You can't do enough to build a hotel because our government has once again lowered those interest rates, making development a lot more easier. And of course, during that panel, I really tried to get the point out there that operations is almost like a whole completely different business than the development side of the business, right? It's there is a strong barrier between the two sections, except when you're talking about overdevelopment. Will then go ahead and eventually cause that sort of a downturn because too many rooms in the market without increase in demand will mess up that supply-demand equation, which I got to be honest with you, kind of messes up everybody's bottom lines for existing hotels. So on the development side, things are going great. A lot of these guys have record pipelines that are out there. Dilip Pettigara says they're still continuing to put out a lot of money into the marketplace. And it was really, really fantastic. Now, the alternative accommodations panel, that was really great, too. I'm a little bit of a sucker for that one. That is for sure. And I talked to some great, fun new brands, such as Philip Bates, the CEO from Bode, Jason Fudin, the CEO and co-founder of Y Hotel, which is a pop-up hotel that goes into different apartment buildings as they are adding more residents. So they'll take 100 or more keys in that building, and they will rent it out to customers that stay for a longer term until, a lot of times those apartments are bought. And interestingly enough, Jason said that a lot of folks that stay in Y Hotel wind up buying the residences and sticking around. And we had Rikesh Patel, who's a regional director with Sonder, another interesting building, another interesting concept where they rent out luxury buildings and turn them into hotel-like experiences. I've stayed at them. I've had a great time. I really love that extra space that they give. And Steve Shbilsky, CEO and co-founder of Stay Open, another fantastic, interesting idea. And our good friend Sean Worker, managing director and principal of T5 Strategies, where he's consulting now with a lot of these companies on these types of things, as well as other avenues of leadership. A lot of fun, a lot of interest. And I really liked that panel because we had great back and forth conversation. I just interviewed the guys for like 15, 20 minutes. And then, the audience just took it away and asked so many great questions. And I'm so happy that Harry Javer of the Lodging Conference gave me the opportunity to put together this great group of people to help really educate and inform where I truly believe the hospitality industry is going. I've spoken about that great convergence before, where hospitality is becoming more like apartments are becoming more like hotels, hostels are really taking on the like, co-working, co-living, all of this stuff is going to be coming together for the giant, great, amazing, incredible conversion that is definitely, absolutely, unequivocally happening out there, right? So This panel really got to that, and you're seeing it expressed now. Some of these things that I've been talking about here for the last 2 or 3 years finally coming to light. And I see that with the Hyatt caption brand that they're putting out by there. And I definitely see a lot of these elements coming up with Atwell Suites. An interview we're going to get to with Jenn Gribble, who runs that brand, in just one moment. But before we go, hey guys, just please tell your friends, your family, your coworkers, anyone randomly on the street about the show. Help me continue to build this community and have a great time. This month, I'm going to be in a lot of fun, different places. Next week, I'm going back to Phoenix for another event. The week after that, I am going to be delivering a keynote address at Hospitality International's 2019 convention in Atlantic City. Looking forward to that. Then I got an event with a management company. The week after that, another event. So thanks to everyone out there who's having me speak at their events. I'm having a great time in October. Spreading the love, showing how we can all succeed together to do great in this hospitality business. Okay, so in the first half of the show, next interview up, we got Jenn Gribble. And in the second half of the show, we've got industry icon Kirk Kinsell, who used to be CEO of Loews. Before that, CEO of IHG Americas, has been around, has been an inspiration, and is an incredible leader. And you're going to hear all of that here. So here comes up Jennifer Gribble's interview coming at you right now. Oh, yeah, I should say, remember this. You've got one life plays on. See you next time, folks. All right, everybody, and welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. It's time to faceplant into rock, and I am with Jenn Gribble, who is now in charge of Atwell Suites, the newest brand at IHG. We're going to be talking to her today about this exciting new development at the company, as well as get a little update on the Aven brand. Jenn,
That's
so
right.
great to see you.
Thank you for having me.
I'm very excited to have you on the podcast because we've done some videos together before, but this is our first time we get to have a real in-depth conversation. I really just hope I don't disappoint you.
There's no way that'll happen.
All right, so I think that this is going to be a great opportunity for us to learn all about Atwell Suites because, quite frankly, I don't feel like I'm connected enough with this brand. I don't know enough with this brand. I find that I'm curious, so all I know is that this brand is right for me.
I was just going to say that. Curiosity is where Atwell Suites starts. So we will get you up to speed.
All right, let's do it.
I'm excited you're interested.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about it. Let's start with maybe where the impetus came from, and then how you created what the angle was going to be that you're going out with.
Okay, so not to sound boring, but we do some demand-centric growth modeling.
Yep.
And we look for large segments.
Hey, demand-central growth modeling is like my favorite thing.
Woo! So we do this modeling to understand where there's a large group of travelers who are dissatisfied and have unmet needs. And we found this large segment of travelers that are worth $18 billion in annual revenue that were telling us they don't like their options today.
Really?
So that's why we designed this brand for them.
So what's going to make them happy that you're doing it Atwell?
So these are travelers that are staying for a longer stay, typically about 4 to 6 nights, and they're looking for a great place to lay their head, but they're looking for some extra things too, including great food and beverage options, as well as great space to work, rest, connect with their colleagues. And so this brand is designed to deliver all those things for them.
So is this fit into extended stay, or is it a little of
Longer
both?
stay.
Longer stay. Okay, so now I got to learn another industry
That's
term
right.
over here. All right, so we're coining the new phrase here.
In all seriousness,
Longer
their stay
stays.
does not amount to extended stay as we know it.
Right.
And it's not quite transient either.
Right.
And so there really is kind of this hybrid space that we see emerging in the industry. And there's a unique hotel for this guest.
Okay,
And so it involves an all suite.
So let's educate the audience real quick here. You know, for transient travelers, we're talking 1, 2, maybe 3 nights. Then extended stay, we're really talking about the 5 to 28, 30-day kind of lengths. Now, I'm guessing this is, 4 to 6?
4 to 6.
4 to 6 days. All right, so that sounds like a long stay. How long did it take for you guys to come up with that phrase? Yeah, Jenn, I ask the hard questions here on the No Vacancy Podcast.
I'm sure we debated it, actually.
Yeah. I'm sure you did. So, what can I realistically expect? You gave me the big vision here, but all brass tacks, I walk into the hotel, what's my experience really going to be like? Why are you going to turn on those consumers that are going to spend $18 billion in this category once it's up and running?
So first, this traveler is looking to grow and to learn more, and one of the things they're interested in learning more about is design and style. So this brand has a strong point of view when it comes to design.
Right.
And so as you enter in the space, you'll see lots of kind of layered colors and patterns and textures, and it just makes it all very interesting and warm feeling when you approach the hotel. Additionally, you'll see lots of kind of flexible spaces. So you'll see, different seating arrangements for co-working, individual working, spaces to connect with others. And you see that in the guest rooms as well. The entry features a great 2-story lobby, which has an amazing kind of atmosphere view and enables us to create these flexible seating arrangements.
Right.
And then, of course, we have our guest rooms that are designed for flexibility, too.
Okay, so flexible seating arrangements, what does that practically mean? How does that express itself in different hotels and maybe even over different day parts?
So what it does mean is I think you'll see our public areas work differently from morning to night. So we feature food and beverage, a complimentary breakfast in the morning, and you'll see the space very much working for breakfast. And then throughout the day part, it kind of changes as the guest mode will change.
Right.
And so more kind of for working in the afternoon, and then we have a lively bar atmosphere planned for the evenings that features a menu of some small bites. And we want to focus on the kind of the time before someone's going to dinner, so that cocktail pre-dinner, as well as when they return. But we do have a menu that allows someone to have a full dinner there if they want to.
Well, I think that this approach is right on, and I say that I'm a little bit biased because I've been preaching this for the last 5 or 6 years or so. I really believe that the meshing together of living spaces with working spaces, with places to be social as well, is the next great frontier in hospitality. And it's great to see that you guys are really focused on this particular idea for a brand. So let's take it up to the guest room, right? I've been working all day. I've been hanging out in the lobby. What can I expect when I want to go and have that alone time, which me, as a raging introvert, crave?
Yeah, introvert.
I am. I know it's surprising to you, but once I leave an event like this that we're recording this show at, I am going to be at home, not speaking to anyone for days.
Not speaking to anyone. Okay, well, we have a room for you then.
Thank you.
So our room features some different zones within the room. So we have a seating area here. You can't see it very well, but we have a nice sofa over here. We have workspace that actually acts as a separator for the room as well. And then a great premium bed experience for a great night's sleep. Features a closet that's 2-sided, so it opens into the guest room as well into the bathroom. So that's what provides some of the flexibility that we're talking about too. Over here we have a wet bar that features a under-counter refrigerator, sink, and coffee maker. Cool. What's interesting about this guest, while they're staying a bit of a longer stay, they're doing no cooking in their room. Right,
I agree. And that's one of the things that I think is a problem for the extended stays, that you have to have all of this kitchen equipment, and a lot of it just isn't used very often, if at all. So for a longer stay, I don't think you need to be cooking in the room. But
they're going out to dinner. They want to put their leftovers in here and maybe some snacks.
And some cold drinks, right? Because that's important to me. I like to have my my water chilled in the morning, and I got to have a good cup of coffee, which is why I'm glad you have that complimentary breakfast as well. Now, I noticed that you guys do not have carpeting in the room. I'm going to guess it's not real wood. It's the LVT type flooring.
It's an LVT flooring.
Which I got to tell you, my good partners over at Porcelanosa, who I do the hotel design podcast with, is sending me a whole bunch of that kind of stuff right now, and I'm doing my house in it, so I can vouch for how awesome of a look that creates. So tell me about why you made that decision, and my guess is it has something to do not only with style, but it's probably easier to clean too.
Yeah, no, the style is terrific. But we wanted this brand to win with guests as well as with owners. And so we created an owner advisory board. We've been working hand in hand with owners across all the different milestones of the brand development process. And so they provide us feedback on what operationally works well, what's easy to clean, maintain, etc. And flooring certainly falls into that category. Very easy to clean. The long-term maintenance is low. And so it's a great choice.
So what was it like working with the owners group? Because I know that in previous brand creations and reintroductions of brands, they've been an integral part of that. But this is kind of a new frontier in some ways, where some of it's, stuff that we've been doing for decades here. But some of these new components are different. They may not have that expertise in it. So how do you balance the needs and desires of the owners with the vision of the brand when you're creating something that we haven't seen really before in our business?
I think what we've learned is so important is this owner also needs to get into the mindset of the guest.
Right.
And so actually we kicked off this whole project with some time in New York where we saw kind of analog businesses that were doing something similar. They got to spend time with some of these guests and hear for them.
Right.
So that they could actually start thinking like them. So they could think as an owner as they do really well, but also start thinking it from the guest lens too. Because sometimes there's tension between what both want, and so then they can help us resolve it better.
Right. Interesting. So what else do we need to know about Atwell? Where are you right now in terms of the development pipeline? Where can we start to see these properties? I want to get all excited with you.
All right. So just last week, we started our franchise sales effort. So that's underway.
Yep.
So we're ready to sign some Atwell Suites hotels and start that pipeline. But it's just getting going.
Yes.
Just
And if you want to read
week.
more about that press release, check it out at novacancynews.com. We have it up there. And it's so much fun to see that you've been putting this together. Where'd the name come from?
Atwell Suites. It's a place where people can be at their best, be inspired, and we found that when we tested it with consumers, there was a lot of optimism to it, and we wanted to make sure that the name had the word suite in it so that it captured what we were truly offering as well.
Awesome. So I think we talked about this enough, but I want an update on another brand from the good family over at IHG, Aven, which is also my favorite video editing equipment. But in this case, we're talking hospitality. Give us an update about what's going on with that brand.
So we've had very strong momentum since we launched Aven Hotels. In fact, we have a pipeline of nearly 200 hotels.
Wow.
We have 3 hotels open here in the U.S., another 10 that'll be opening in the fourth quarter, and 60 under construction. And since we launched, we are also have a pipeline in Mexico, Canada, and Germany.
Wow.
So it's growing globally, which is fun to see.
Wow, that is really fun to see. Wow, that's really cool. Mexico and Germany. That's pretty neat. So tell us about why owners should invest in Aven. What's it going to do for them?
Aven, it's a great proposition. I mean, it's a hotel that was meant to be simple to develop, build, own, operate, and it's proving to be that. The build cost is $85,000 to $89,000 per key, and guests love the proposition, so strong owner returns there.
And of course, let me say that's without land. That should be
That's
a given by now.
Yes,
so
thank you.
people listening out there, just get that
Thank you.
together, right? Yeah. Anything else that's going on that's new and exciting that you want to talk about?
No, we're just really excited about Atwell Suites.
Yeah,
we
as you
hope
should
to break ground on our first one in first quarter of 2020, and then open in first quarter of 2021. So we're excited to be here at the lodging conference talking to owners about the new offer.
Yeah, well, I wish you the best of luck, and I cannot wait to see one of these things open. I really think this Atwell Suites is going to really hit the hospitality zeitgeist, and this is the future of where we are going right now in the hospitality industry. People want to live differently, they want to work differently, they want to experience the hospitality environment differently, and I think you guys nailed it, Jen.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm really excited for you. So, Jen, at the end of all of our podcasts, now that you've done a good job, I would love for you to give a good shameless plug. How can we find you and anything else that you want to plug out there?
AtwellSuites.com.
Beautiful. That's easy enough.
That's right.
I love it. And how about Aven? Give a good plug for Aven.
Yeah, well, of course. AvidHotels.com. Come book a room.
All right, awesome. I want to thank you so much for being here today, Jen. I want to thank you guys for listening to another great episode of the No Vacancy podcast. Yeah, I know it's great. It's not because of me. It's because Jen was so awesome. And I want to thank you guys for listening. Be sure to subscribe. If you aren't getting our Sunday night newsletter, text the word hotel to 66866. Yeah, it's just that simple. Text the word hotel to 66866. You got our Sunday night newsletter. Subscribe to the podcast wherever you like to get your shows. We got 5 different series right now, and we'd love for you to hear each and every one of them. So for Jenn Gribble and myself, Glenn Hausman, thanks for listening. I'll be back next week, unless I decide to go and wait wistfully until the first Atwell Suites open. All right, guys, see you next time.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody, Glenn here. So listen to this. According to a recent survey, Red Roof's franchisee satisfaction is at an incredibly impressive 90%. And, I think the number one reason why is because Red Roof actually listens to franchisees. That is so important. They have a franchise advisory council, and their members serve as a liaison between franchisees in their area and the Red Roof franchising executive team. Amit Patel, a council member who owns a property in Irondale, Alabama, said, unlike other brands, the advisory council isn't just a formality. We have a strong voice and are truly involved in all the decisions. Member Sheetal Patel of Kingman, Arizona, explained that the council helps because everyone keeps on the same page. And that's really important. Now, Mr. Patel, he converted to Red Roof because he knew the consistent quality would help upgrade his customer base, and he's already seeing a difference. And you can too. Now, quoting Aven Patel from Saraland, Alabama, he's got multiple brands in her portfolio, and she says other franchisors can't hold a candle to Red Roof when it comes to responsiveness. I'm on a first-name basis with senior management. All of this, to me, proves genuine relationships, real results. It's far more than a slogan. To learn all of the advantages of partnering with Red Roof, visit redrooffranchising.com. That's redrooffranchising.com, or call 888-473-8861. Tell them Glenn sent you. Hey everybody, welcome back to the No Vacancy Podcast with me, your host, Glenn Hausman. I am excited today. All right, I know you say, Glenn, you're always excited. Well, of course I am. I get to talk to amazing people in our incredible hotel business each and every week here on the No Vacancy Podcast. This week is no exception. I have with us a great investor. His name is Kirk Kinsell. You probably know him because he's been around in our industry for a lot of years and only recently reinvented himself a couple of years ago as an investor. Before that, of course, he ran such companies as Loews Hotels and Intercontinental Hotels Group here in America. Kirk, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing great. It's good to be with you.
Yeah, really excited to have you here today. All right, so I got to make a little bit of an admission as we are first starting out, Kirk. I was a young and insecure guy the first time I got to interview you way back in the day, and you scared the bejesus out of me. Says more about me than you, but I don't know what I was thinking. You seem to be very frightening to a young little Glenn.
Well, I wish I could recall the situation. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it played out that way. Hopefully you've come to be very comfortable with me.
No, absolutely. You know what it is? In retrospect and looking back on who I was not a fully formed individual yet. And while we still all have insecurities, I think I was wearing more of mine on my sleeve. And you're a very powerful person in the sense that you had a lot of confidence about yourself. And that can come off really great. But if somebody's insecure about themselves, it made them nervous. So I got myself up into a whole hoop-de-doo, and I'm glad that you don't even remember the interview because that means that I didn't expose my my true insecurities to you. But I think the best thing that we could do is start with what you're doing these days at Panther Ridge Partners. I think it's very interesting to me that you went from being a CEO of great hotel companies to deciding to become an investor. Maybe you could explain a little bit of what made you want to do that transition, and then we could talk a little bit about what you're doing right now in the world of investments.
Well, just to be clear with respect to our early beginnings, none of us are fully formed entities or bodies. We continue to grow and learn. Okay?
Yeah. All right, so let me ask you a question, Kirk. So back in your early days, how did you find a place of confidence? How did you find a place to make you be the best Kirk Kinsell that you could possibly be and have everyone around you know that you are doing the best that you possibly can, or at least create the perception that you are?
Well, that's a softball question for me because that's really what I continue to be passionate about as I talk to other people, because I believe that my success and therefore all of our success is based upon a couple of things. One is to be very intentional about what we're doing. So that means having a plan, working the plan, sharing it with others, getting feedback, growing. Right. And then importantly, at the center of all of that is you can only be good for others if you're strong for yourself. And so, I don't have the right to work on anybody else until I work on myself. And I share that with others in a way that basically says, you need to have that level of vulnerability, that level of humility, be seen, doing things that sometimes take risk and take it may or may not work. Celebrate your epic failures and give credit to everyone else for the success.
Excellent. Those are great words of wisdom. I wish I had known these things earlier on. And that's why I love having this particular podcast, because for some of the younger folks that listen, I hope when they hear some of us older people to know that once we were just like them, right? And it takes a long time to get to a position where you feel really super confident inside to match what you put on the outside. Right, Kirk?
Yeah, sure. And, I always tell the story. It's probably it's my story, and therefore I like it. But I always tell the story about when I was in kindergarten. They went around the room. They asked what they wanted to be when they grew up, and I was the only one, I think, in the room that said I knew what I wanted to be. And in fact, I had 3 elements to it. And so at the end of the year, they were voting, most likely to succeed. And I got it just simply because I had a plan.
That's
now,
awesome.
The plan hasn't played out exactly the way I thought it would. But, nothing wrong with being intentional and being focused and having those ambitions in terms of, what you can do with your life.
Right. I think I spent too many years not really having a clear sense of what I wanted to do with my life. So it's interesting that you were so focused early on, even though it wasn't the path that you eventually took.
Yeah, well, and you link the most important thing is to link your energy, link your passion, link your with a purpose. And the best thing you can do is to ascribe that purpose or to connect that purpose to the work environment that you're in, because then work becomes fun and it becomes exciting. Otherwise, it's a job, and jobs are not what we all want to bring meaning to us. What brings meaning to us is having a mission.
Right.
It's having a purpose. It's having a place where we can go and do better. So that kind of links me back to.
Yes, I was about to say, I was going to say, what is your purpose today? You created a great segue for us there.
Yeah, well, what really kind of happened for me was I stood back about 3 or 4 years ago and looked at where I was spending my time against what were really truly my values and my principles, and found that there was a disconnect, not for fault of anyone else but myself. Mm-hmm. And at that time also my kids were starting to have our grandkids, and I'd been a guy who had traveled his entire life. I'd been a guy who my wife and I were always proud to say, we sustained a great marriage through a weekend marriage. And so I decided I wanted to really focus more on those things that were the most important to me, which were family, were friends, we're doing work in our great hospitality around developing people. Anything I could do to be involved in, with people. So, the work I've been doing with the AHLA through the Educational Foundation and having, chaired a campaign there, kind of, it made me, question the other kind of aspects of my life. It's always great, by the way, Glenn, to be able to stay in the best suite in the hotel and not, and always great to be, taken care of like, you're the king. But that's just a title, and that goes away very quickly when you focus in, but you get greater rewards out of, turning your time towards those things that are most meaningful for you.
That's excellent. So how, as being an investor and the principal of Panther Ridge Partner, enable you to do the things that you find most important to your soul these days is a good way to put it, I think.
Yeah, well, it's a mixture of personal and professional. The investment that we're doing now is through a family investment office. So it involves my kids, and it's a focus on, our future. It's also very low level compared to what, when we think about investors in the hospitality industry spending millions of dollars on, development of a hotel, or billions of dollars on buying, chains of hotels.
Right.
But it's still meaningful, and it still brings purpose because it's things that we want to be involved in. And they're also spread across real estate as well as across new concepts and it's staying pretty much in the hospitality industry, but new concepts that are, going to change this industry, we hope.
Yeah, I hope so too. Now, is there any particular company that you think is really reflective of that you'd like to share about? And it's all right if you plug it a little bit, because I think our listeners would be interested to know what types of companies do you think are going to be successful in the future enough that you're willing to put up your money for it?
Well, there's a lot of choices out there, and I'll just focus on one investment that I think is interesting. It's a company based out of New York. It's called Imadre, and what they're doing is it's a software internet-based business that is creating a packing tool. It's interesting in your intro on your podcast, you talk about, do you have the right things in your suitcase? Do you have your shave kit? I think you said, do you have your recording equipment?
Right.
And this is a business that works with travel companies to create a tool for the traveler to help them on reduce the stress, which is probably the highest level of stress in the whole travel journey, as you're anticipating where you're going and what you're going to need to wear, and do you have the right things, and are you going to fit in, and what other activities am I going to be involved in? And this tool helps people accomplish all of that, but importantly, it gives a lot of content for travel partners to be able to better curate a travel and a trip for the customer.
Interesting. So what excites you about that? Is it the whole idea of being able to extend that notion of personalization and to really break through a lot of that clutter to connect more, much better with an individual?
Well, I think from a customer standpoint, it's exciting because it's a solution for what is one of the most stressful parts of our travel. Even a guy like me or a guy like you, I always had a separate shave kit. I always had a separate suitcase. I always had the shirt. It looked like I was a pedestrian. Everything all set, ready to go. But it's always time to get that together, and I always had to think about it. So I think that it gets me excited. Moreover, though, it's the ability to link that to travel partners who then can serve, those travelers, those customers, much more effectively. Hospitality is defined as something that we do for people. Service is something we do to people. And so we're providing a solution for people that just makes their travel that much more efficient, makes companies who are sponsoring their travel to be more efficient. And of course, the other thing that excites me is at the company level, I'm able to work with the founders and talk to them about their own personal development and the tool development and linking them with other people across the hospitality industry. And, some of those are friends and some of those are becoming new friends as we make those connections.
Right, because to be fair, you're really more of an investor and an advisory firm. So you kind of take some of these people under your wings to share your decades of knowledge and experience as well as your contacts. And I love that aspect as well, that you're also helping them become those fully formed professionals that we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation. Yeah, exactly. Remember, though, we're never fully formed. We're constantly evolving. Exactly. And I will use Norman Lear as an example. For the young folks that don't know who he is, he's a famous television producer that created shows like All in the Family back in the 1970s and all of those great shows. He's in his mid-90s right now. And I heard an interview with him, and he said even from the time he was like from 87 to 89, he still changed a whole lot. So each and every one of us change. We continue to develop no matter how old we are. So I thought that was an interesting point. But Kirk, I'm curious from you, how do you know what would be a good investment, what's not a good investment? How much of it is based on gut? How much of it is based on the offering? How does all of that work for you as an individual?
Well, I think you never, who has perfect foresight?
Right.
None of us do. It is a combination of being able to use both your guts and your brain to evaluate the opportunity. And I think importantly for anyone, it's putting it into a risk, profile. you should not, as an investor, go 100% into, high risk startup businesses, for example. With Amadre, it is a business that's starting from ground zero. It's got,
Right.
Very limited revenue. So there is associated risk with it. Well, you, as an investor, you find other portfolio opportunities in which you can, balance that and ultimately have a weighted portfolio of, investments that will give you the kinds of, reasonable returns. And you're not going to hit it out of the a home run out of the park every time by any stretch.
Right.
So it's, and it's also those that, bring you other energy. I mean, I always say to the companies I work with that, there's a lot of money out there. So what you want is strategic capital. You just don't want growth capital. You want strategic capital. So, choose the partners who can bring you, and then hopefully I'm providing some insight and some support and some advice to Amadre, for example, that, help them grow their business.
Right. Yeah, and I think about that, and I flirted with the idea of trying to find some investors early on when I created this business. It's totally different than something like you're doing. I don't need to worry about scale and stuff like that. But I was always, curious as if I could have somebody that maybe they've been through this before and they can help me get through those rough points. So I think it's a great opportunity for you to be out there, not just sharing your money, but your knowledge as well with all of these younger companies. It must give you a real good sense of satisfaction when you see one of these nuggets of an idea really blossom into something that's real.
Well, for sure. And, we all have selective memory. So I've chosen not to remember the ones that didn't work out great.
It's probably for the best, right? So let's hop in that Wayback Machine. I'm curious, how did you find your way into the hotel business? Because when I came across you, you're already a big leader. You were running development, I think, at the time for Intercontinental Hotels Group for America when we first came to contact each other, although they might have been called Six Continents or Bass or whatever they were back then.
Yeah. Well, we can go through all of that if we need to.
No, we don't need to. But for the younger folks out there, the current IHG, I felt like changed its name every 18 months for a long time there.
Well, the good news is it's for the company. While it had a lot of different names, it really never changed. It's always been a great company.
Yeah.
How did I get into the hotel business?
Yeah.
And it goes back to that story I told about being in kindergarten. One of the things I said I wanted to be was a doctor because my father was a doctor. But it turned out that I grew up in California and went to school in La Jolla, UC San Diego. I liked surfing more than organic chemistry. So it turned out that, and lucky for me, is my grandfather had been in the hotel business. He had married into the business. He had married into the Clift family. And a lot of the people out there will know that the hotel, the San Francisco Clift. It's on Union Square in San Francisco. And that was built by my great-grandfather. So it was built in 1915.
Wow.
So it's owned by Hospitality Properties Trust, which, I know those guys, and I own a few shares, so I could say I still own the family, hotel.
That's awesome.
So the hotel business was something that as a kid growing up, I was always exposed to. There was a hotel that my grandfather was running in my hometown of Santa Barbara. I spent a lot of time there, and so the industry had always been appealing to me. And I had the opportunity, in terms of after graduating from UC San Diego, to attend Cornell. They had a master's program in hospitality, one of the early programs of that format. And, that was the launching pad for sure.
Excellent. So at what point do you go from thinking about the operations side to being on the franchisor side of the business? And what was that transition like for you? And what kind of opportunities do you feel it opened up for you?
Well, you talk about it as an investor, or
I'm thinking about early in your career days.
Yeah, well, early in my career, I got attracted to franchising as a business model, having really cut my teeth out of in the hotel business my early days in the development game with the Trammell Crow organization, and I worked directly for Mr. Crow. They've been longtime investors in hotels. We actually, a lot of history here, so we don't need to spend all of our time with it. But we created the Wyndham Hotel Company, and Wyndham is like IHG has taken a lot of different twists and turns to where it is today. The great company in New Jersey.
I had no idea that you were part of that. Wow.
Yeah. So I came out of the hotel school program in 1980 and joined the Crow organization, having a small, short stint in working for a supplier in the property management business. And so I joined the Crow organization in Dallas and was there for about 7 years, where we developed the Wyndham Hotel Company. We built a lot of great hotels that are out there branded now today, mostly as Renaissance that we built. And then I left to join Holiday Inn actually in late 80s as they were recruiting for a development guy. And I was really interested then in the franchising format as a business model. And frankly, it was a time also in which the S&L crisis had hit, and development from ground up building for the Crow organization had slowed to we were doing RTC kind of properties and those types of things.
That's fascinating. So, what was that journey like for you? Going from those low levels to ascending to positions such as president of EMEA with Intercontinental Hotel Groups, and then president of Americas with IHG as well.
Yeah, well, my the career span from that late 80s at Holiday Inn or Holiday Corporation, I chose to stay with Holiday Inn because I had written a paper about how to grow the business post-sale. And unlike one of your previous podcast speakers, Jim Holtheiser, who went to Promus, I stayed with Holiday Inn. And so, if you go along, my career, therefore, was primarily focused on development, which meant I was focused on the relationships and the connections with the development community and with our franchisee. And, I learned a lot about, leadership through working directly with, a whole host of very successful and very determined, hotel developers and hotel owners. And along my journey, I constantly put my hand up for, more accountability and more opportunity. And as I did, I was fortunate that I had some mentors along the way who gave me feedback on things that I needed to work on. But when the opportunities came up, for example, the opportunity to go over to London and work in, Europe, working across Europe, Middle East, Africa, that was an opportunity which was one of a lifetime. But, I had to earn that by going through a development program that was about a 2-year kind of thing that, we had agreed amongst myself, my boss, my boss's boss, that I could demonstrate to be able to take on that role.
Wow. How do you get your family to get on board with something like that? Because you're really uprooting everybody and potentially moving them across the ocean, or maybe you left them here and somehow came back and forth.
Yeah, interestingly, early in my career, as Bass had stepped into the ownership of Holiday Inn, my wife and I had looked at opportunities to go to Europe and take the kids because we really wanted them to have that experience when they were younger. But in 2007, when I took on the role over in London, I had a son that was in college and a daughter who was graduating that year from high school. So, it wasn't like we had, I didn't have to uproot them. They were already kind of into their new careers. My wife and I were working on a house in North Carolina, which is our vacation home. And so she was, totally involved in that. And so it gave me the freedom, if you will, to kind of go over and establish myself, dedicate my time. And then, we just, as we've had in our career, in our relationship, my wife and I, I commuted ostensibly because, and she did too. So when I was going to places like Italy and Spain and France, she'd put her hand up and say, let me come over and visit with you and I'll travel with you. And, I won't be a bother. And then those times when I was going to Russia or to some part of Africa, she'd say, well, maybe I need to stay home in the U.S. and take care of something else.
Yeah, smart woman.
Yeah,
I like that. The other thing that you had mentioned that I'd love to learn a little bit more from you is you mentioned the value of mentors to you and guiding you and calling you out on the stuff where you could improve. How do you go and find a mentor? And then how do you find a mentor that's willing to tell you like it is?
Well, it isn't so much the mentor as it is the mentee,
right,
and the attitude of the mentee. It's the willingness to be able to take on that feedback, to hear things about yourself that, aren't perfect, and to be seen working on them, because that will inspire the mentor when they're giving coaching advice and they're dedicating their time. They're going to do that a couple of times, but they're going to stop doing it if they don't see the other person, listening and doing something with it. So it's really important. I learned very early on, very important to be seen doing something with that advice and with that feedback.
Right.
And I was fortunate, that I worked for some great guys, and I could go down a long list, but, Trammell Crow was, he was the preeminent real estate developer, and you really literally sat right at his desk and you were inspired by what he was teaching you the whole time. He had more confidence in you than you had in yourself. And that's what, really kind of propelled your willingness to take risk.
Wow.
And
that's awesome.
Then I worked, a guy like Mike Levin, who I worked with for a number of years.
At Holiday Inn.
Still have a relationship with Mike. Mm-hmm. He's just a great teacher. And he has a passion for it, and he's very good at it, and he's very good at telling you what you need to hear.
Yeah, then it's up to you not to take it too personally. I just bumped into Mike Levin at JFK Airport recently, and we're working out a time for him to be on this podcast as well. So I look forward to having him on, because he is a true industry icon, just like Mr. Kirk Kinsell is here. So, Kirk, I got to ask you, running Intercontinental Hotels Group as president of the Americas is such an awesome position to have. What was that like for you, and what were some of the things that you did that helped set the course of the company on where it's going to today in 2019?
Well, I was, I stepped back into the business right on the back of the Great Recession, as we refer to it.
Yeah.
And so we had to go back and do what we had done in the early part of the 2000s, which kind of had propelled my career, which was to get that flywheel of hotel development, hotel growth really working. And it was about bringing back confidence and trust, as well as performance within our franchise and development community, the owner community.
Right.
One thing that at IHG, particularly with Holiday Inn, we would always aspire to want to be, as powerfully a gold standard as Marriott was, from a performance standpoint, but we didn't always perform the same way. Sometimes our hotels or Holiday Inns would beat the Courtyards, and sometimes the Courtyards would beat us.
Right.
But the one thing we could be for our development community was we could be that trusted source. Hotel owners, they look at two things in franchising. They look at who can they make the most money with, and who do they trust the most with their money.
Right.
So, we just played the card back when I came back around building the relationship back with the owner community, getting them more engaged and involved in the direction of the company. We kind of created a platform for conversations and for success, and how they would, get involved in forming the strategy for the company. And we therefore had them speaking to, the CEO at the time, Richard Solomons, directly, and that allowed them to, reinvest with confidence in the company.
Right.
The other thing we did,
you really did. I just want to add a little more color for the audience right there, because at that time, I felt as an outside observer that Holiday Inn was really on the precipice of irrelevancy. And what you folks did internally was not just save the brand, but really reinvigorated it and created an engine that's been successful through to today. So I just did want to get that out there. So please continue.
Well, thanks. And of course, we're doing a lot of things with the brands themselves. At the time, we were launching a new brand called Aven Hotels, which was, thinking about what was way before the industry even thought about wellness. Now today, that's everybody's play. So, I used to always say we at Holiday Inn knew more than, or had forgotten more than other people know. So
so true.
You just sometimes you have to play the things that and go back to strategies that had worked before, and other times there's new strategies. The other piece was, our go to market, our service model was changing dramatically because we were just concluding about that time the sale of a large portfolio of our hotels. So we had to move much more towards from a success with our shareholders as a cash flow business, not a real estate ownership business, and not returning special dividends and that were the result of proceeds from sales.
Right.
But we really had to make sure that we could deliver the margins, if you will, on the performance and grow a portfolio of hotels that were relevant around the world. So, two other things happened. At the group level, we kind of looked at where we were located across the world, and that included where we were in the U.S. and what was the strength of our core business. And I guess I was fortunate to get the board who were oftentimes more engaged in the new markets, or back then it was Mexico and Russia and China and India, Brazil. And I kept saying, look at, the core market of the U.S. is where we want to focus. So we redeveloped a lot of our strategies for reinvestment in the core markets. And of course that brings the confidence of the franchisees back too.
Right. And I feel like at this time as well, I feel as if, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but at that time you brought the franchisees much more into the fold and to be an active participants in new elements that would be introduced to brands, or even helping to create new brands entirely. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Mm-hmm. But, we needed to put a way of working around it because otherwise,
right.
It can be chaos.
Yeah.
And so we created what I hope is a formula for success, which allowed them to, get engaged in strategy. But then we would spend, I basically characterized it and said, look, the company's responsible, 90% responsible for the strategy. You guys, we're going to listen to you. So that's 10%. But then when we talk about, how do we bring that strategy to action? That's 50-50. We're going to sit down and we're going to work through how we're going to deliver this into the marketplace.
Right.
And then when it comes to actually taking it into the marketplace and having where the rubber meets the road as opposed to the sky, that's where you franchisees have to do 90% of the heavy lifting. And we need to be reliant upon you to take these ideas and actually put them into your hotels. So, there's a quid pro quo, so to speak, for getting involved in strategy. You got to do what you got to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And then after that, you went over to Loews Hotels, and I'm a little fuzzy on the details there, but I feel like you came in at that period where they had been stagnant for a lot of times, and when you came in, it kind of reinvigorated, and a lot of development seemed to take place over there. I feel like that was at the same time, and I feel like you were behind a lot of that. Is that correct?
Well, you're giving me more credit than Stu.
And you're going to take less credit than you deserve, but go for it.
But, Paul Wetzel had come into the business and had led a large growth of the Loews portfolio, and that was through acquisition.
Right.
When I came in behind Paul, it was about rationalizing what had been, kind of achieved in those 4 years. Mm-hmm. It was also thinking about a future as to where, where the brand's strength played, and how could we think about a growth portfolio that could be sustainable over time, and more so one that would be less reliant upon Loews Corp investment, with being able to be more attractive to outside partners, because a lot of their growth historically had been really 100% or very nearly that amongst the Loews organization. And, there's not many companies in the world that can be so lucky to have such a great partner as Loews Corp.
Yeah, that company's done some great stuff, and I like what you were doing when you were over there. So let's kind of wrap all of that we've talked about into a nice bow that we have here. I know you're super happy with where you are in your career right now. So looking back over everything, was it all great for you? Do you feel like you came out on the other side of this in a really great position through all those years working for hotel companies? When you look back on it, how do you feel about all of it?
Well, I have the benefit of having had a career that careers, I always tell young people, they're like rivers, and they will take different direction based upon the geography sometimes. And of course, based upon the content, i.e., the amount of water, and they're full of water, so water will find a low point every so often, and so did my careers.
Right. That's Kirk's nice way of saying that his career has hit a low point during this conversation, but that's okay.
No.
I'm just playing.
So as I look back on my 40-odd years, a majority of it was in hospitality, and I would say that all of my time was dedicated to hospitality, although there was a moment there for 4 years that I was working in a technology company, but at the time I was on the board of the predecessor company of Interstate, which was Maristar.
Wow.
So I was still in hospitality. So, and so I've seen things from outside the industry while I was, kind of playing in the industry. And this is I would never regret any of what has transpired. Would I do things differently? Of course you do in hindsight, because that's the benefit of reflection, the benefit of challenging yourself as to, what you could have done differently. My advice to people typically is, if you think it's really tough going and, you want to make a change in your career, give yourself another year, to assess that before you make a jump. And, I can go back a couple of times where I probably jumped before, I looked. And again, I don't at all, regret any of it. But those are the lessons that we learn.
Yeah, they sure are. And the interesting thing is, Kirk, I kind of followed that piece of advice because before I started this company, I spent a whole year thinking about it, planning it, and making sure it was the right decision. Because once I pulled the trigger on that, I could never go back. So I think that's a great piece of advice. Any final thoughts that you have for us here today, Kirk?
No, the only thing I'd say is enjoy your podcast. I love the diverse nature of the conversations that you have, and keep up the great work.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And I got to tell everybody listening today, I don't know what I was thinking, being nervous talking to that guy all those years ago, because this has been an absolutely fabulous conversation. So for all of us here, I want to thank you for listening. Be sure you subscribe to our show if you are not getting it right now on iTunes, on Google Play, wherever finer podcasts are found, including places like Stitcher. And I will be back next week with another great show. That is, unless I decide to go out and open my own investment firm and beg Kirk Kinsell for money. See you all guys next week.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.